Hello. Welcome to this special VE Day version of the Kindness Project, Take 2. We had some technical issues at the start, didn't we?
Your laptop decided it was reset time.
Do you know what makes a laptop reset at the least appropriate time? I just don't know. I genuinely don't know. But we are here. We are live. It's VE Day. Happy VE. We are there. Happy VE Day to everybody watching. Yes. Hope you're doing well. I am joined by a girl who is amazing. That's all I'm going to say this morning. It's Charlotte Dames.
And I'm joined by a man who's just come back from his morning run and tells me it's very lovely outside.
It is lovely outside. That might be our two most boring intros ever.
I had one.
Oh, right, you had one, but you can't remember. Yeah, we were...
Because I just like...
We were kiboshed with technical difficulties, I think. And we've also got an amazing guest today who's clearly the most patient lady in the planet, because she came on at 9:30 and we just got it all wrong. It's Vaz. Hi, Vaz. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. Good morning to you both.
Morning. Right, a couple of things we want to talk about before we actually start the interviews and everything else we need to do. First of all, I want to do the question of the podcast, because I want to talk about that. Today's question of the podcast is... What's your favourite memory of a grandparent? Now, what would yours be, Charlotte? Take your time.
Just thinking it over. I mean, me and Nan did spend like a good couple of days just like chilling on the sofa, watching Criminal Minds, sympathising with the murderers and drinking tea.
So sympathising with psychopaths, that's appropriate for the Kindness Project.
We made a joke out of it.
Oh, okay, fair enough. So just chilling with your nan, having a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Vaz, what's your favourite memory of a grandparent?
My favourite memory, I think, has to be of my nan, my mother's mother.
Okay.
She was blind for much of her adult life. And I couldn't for the life of me work out how she managed to cook all the things she did without having sight.
Yeah.
So, yeah, amazing food and, sensory impairment. Amazing woman.
How did I know that your story was going to be related to food in some way, shape or form?
I'm so predictable.
We're going to be talking a lot about food in this show, I'm pretty sure. So we'll do that. I reckon I've got a few, and it's weird you say that because Cassie's mum, your nan, has a visual impairment, and one of my favourite memories of is going Russell, our esteemed producer / editor, going round to Cassie's mum's house and getting tins chucked at him, and Russell turning around and going, "That was a pretty accurate shot. How does she know where I am?" A genuine true story. But my favourite memory, I think, of my granddad is he used to take me down to London quite a lot, and one of the things that we used to do is go to the National Gallery, right? And when I was like Sophie's age, probably 8 or 9, I used to love the National Gallery, not particularly for the art, but they had the biggest set of revolving doors, and he used to let me go around the revolving doors, run all the way through to the exit, and then just go round the revolving doors again.
That's my favourite part of IKEA.
Is it? Revolving doors. I haven't got a favourite part of IKEA. Okay, so that's the question of the podcast. Do you want to let people know where they can get in touch with us?
Okay, so if you're currently watching this, welcome to our Facebook page or the watch party for this video, but I'm sure there's some way you can just click on it and it will take you to our Facebook page. Yeah. But if you're not currently watching this and you're listening to this back from... this is probably from about 3 months ago now if you're listening to this.
Yeah, we're still in lockdown, so I don't know when you're listening to it, but we are waiting for the confirmation on what's going to happen.
Then you just need to put the Kindness Project podcast in the bar and it comes up. I've tested it several times from several accounts.
Yeah. Twitter?
At Ola Kindness. And our email is ola@thekindnessproject.co.uk. Our website is
www.thekindnessproject.co.uk, and you can listen to all of the amazing episodes. We're about up to about 120 now, not sure of 120,
Yeah.
including the amazing original interview or the original couple of episodes with the interview with Vaz, and we're going to be catching up with Vaz today and finding out what she's been up to. A few other things that I want to mention. On one of last week's shows, we gave people an update in terms of our new viewers and listeners since we've been doing the Facebook Live. Now, not only have we been voted, and this was a few months ago, the 17th happiest podcast in the world, we are now, and this, I've got something to say about this, Charlotte. I don't think we deserve this, right? Because we are number 42 in the world in philosophy podcasts.
You had written UK there.
No. I'm sorry, that's UK. So we're at 42nd in the philosophy podcast in the UK. I'm really sorry. Socrates was a philosopher, right? Plato was a philosopher.
Good men.
Voltaire was a philosopher. Chris and Charlotte, not philosophers. Thanks for the vote of confidence, though. We appreciate it. But this is the weirdest thing.
This is the icing on the cake.
This is the icing on the cake. We got an email from our esteemed editor and producer, Russell, telling us we are now in the top podcast in the USA for comedy. I mean, no, come on, people.
Are we that funny?
I don't know what this is, but this isn't comedy. This just isn't comedy.
This is nonsense.
Seinfeld's comedy. I don't know, Peter Kay's comedy. There's loads of comedians, but I'm glad you're enjoying it, and thanks for carrying on watching.
The Greeks used to watch two people stand on the stage and insult each other for comedy, so...
That's pretty close to what this podcast is. So thank you for watching, and thank you for the new people who've tuned in since we've been going live. Clearly... people like what we do,
it's funny, apparently.
And we like it. The weird thing is, we've only got that rating since you've been doing that joke at the end, so maybe that's the turning point.
I knew I forgot something this morning.
Yeah, that's maybe the point. So thank you if you're watching, and thanks for making us unjustifiably one of the top comedy podcasts in America. Apparently, that's a weird one.
Why we didn't get it in England?
So no, maybe the Americans like our quirky style. I don't know. It's a weird one. And one other thing that I want to mention. Got up this morning.
Yep.
Got ready for my run.
Yep.
And I get a notification from John Sharman, who decided to, nominate me for something called the 3 Egg Challenge. Never heard of it.
No.
It looks like it involves boiling 2 eggs and then having 1 egg that's not boiled and cracking one. It's like egg Russian roulette that you've got to try and avoid the boiled egg. So
1 in 3 chance.
Yeah. So apparently I'm giving that a go. We'll see how that
Odds
goes.
aren't too bad.
So thank you to Steve for watching us, for Rickard for watching us, Trev's watching us, hi dude, Nick's watching us, and Greg's watching us. Thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Happy VE Day. I think for me it's really important to remember, even though times now are not great, because we're going through something that's quite difficult, the sacrifice that people made all those years ago. I think today's a day to think about gratitude and think about sort of why we live in a free country and a free society. Vaz, how are you celebrating VE Day? Are you doing anything nice, special, anything different?
I think that I'm going to touch base with some friends and family and go for a nice long walk in the sunshine.
Right.
I think contemplation whilst walking is always a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I think you're right. Have you got some nice green space where you are?
I have. I'm very lucky. I've got lots of green space. So I think maybe a couple of hours of very long walk make up for the fact that I've done very little exercise for the week. But I make you right, Chris, in terms of celebrating everything that we do have based on the sacrifices of those who've gone before us. I think it's a very important time just to reflect, to recollect and to celebrate.
Yeah, and I think in terms of protecting our own mental health as well, gratitude is shown to be an important part of that. So it's important to think about not only a challenging time we're going through, but also how lucky we are to have the freedoms we have. So thanks, Vaz. I really appreciate you saying that. Feel free to carry on answering the question of the podcast. We've got some amazing answers so far, and certainly there's a nostalgic feel about today because of VE Day, and some of the nostalgia that comes out is amazing. Now, Vaz, I just want to talk to you because when we first met, Charlotte and I came over to Vauxhall Bridge, and I've just got to share this story with our listeners and viewers. I embarrassed myself because I thought I could handle a hot curry. Clearly, now I know I can't, because there was these little red peppers that you warned me that were going to be really hot. I thought I'd try quite a lot, and
he just doesn't listen.
I should have listened, shouldn't I? And do most people heed the warning when it comes to curries, or do they think they are
Charlie Big Bananas?
All right. So what? Number one is the question one: is curry strength an acquired taste, and do people normally go too hot too quick?
We actually make our curries very, very mild. And the Scotch bonnet chutney we placed on the side did actually come with a health warning. And we do warn people before they go to it. But unfortunately, a lot of people think they can handle it, and then suddenly it becomes very difficult quite quickly.
Yeah, I don't think I've been...
So the heat rises very quickly, and then it's very, very hard to actually bring back down. So no, we don't serve everyone that extra hot chutney. It's not for everyone. I personally like my curries quite mild, actually. I like to taste the food and not the heat.
Okay. I the problem with the Scotch bonnet was that it starts off quite innocuous and then builds up to a heat quite quickly, doesn't it? That's the challenge.
Absolutely, it can be painful.
I don't think I've ever been that shade of red. Just ever.
That's so funny.
But the curry, the apart from the super hot one, your other curries were amazing, and thank you for feeding us that day, and we really appreciate it. One thing before we get to the interview that I need to mention, and I mentioned it on last episode as well. Trev Robinson, friend of the show, supporter of Morning Dudes. He's raising money for St Francis at the minute. He's an amazing photographer. Some of his nature photography is incredible. He's in Havering, where we live. He's going round and doing doorstep family portraits. With a proportion of the money going to St Francis. So please, we'll put something on the show notes below when we put this out, and we'll put a link to Trev. The Facebook page, I think, is called Fit in a Flash, but Trev can correct us if it's not, because I know he's watching. If you can, please make sure that you support both Trev and St Francis Hospice, because he's a bit of a dude, isn't he? He's a dude.
Bit of an alright dude.
He's a bit of a dude. So please do that. But Vaz, we've invited you on to tell us about the amazing work you do. But before we start talking about the work, tell us a bit about you.
I work and volunteer and support generally within the health, mental health and the well-being arena, very broad umbrella. So around safeguarding, training mental health first aid. And right now I'm working for an amazing organisation called Bridge Renewal Trust. And we're working with the community and the voluntary sector, directly involved with the COVID-19 response around health, well-being and supporting the not-for-profit sector in its response to the current pandemic. So I'm a very busy woman at the moment, but also I feel that there's an incredible amount of good work that's happening, and also incredible acts of kindness. So I find that with the Nepal project and in my day job and volunteering, that there's this thread that runs through around people being the best that they can be. It's wonderful to see.
Yeah, I 100%. I think in times of adversity, sometimes we show our best sides, don't we?
Yes.
We've got, it's interesting, so next week, we've got, I think it's Thursday, we've got a guest coming on from the Havering voluntary sector, the lady who's organising in Havering all of the COVID-19 response for volunteers. And there's thousands of people that have stepped up and asked for help. Is that your experience in the wider space? And where geographically, where are you supporting at the minute?
We've actually, I understand what you're saying about the volunteers. There's been a huge response of people stepping up to volunteer, both with the NHS and within the community and various faith-based organisations as well. So, we've got a lot of people who set up food banks, who are making welfare calls over the phone to their congregations and their community members. We've got a lot of people who are reaching out over the phone with helplines and phone lines, deliveries for vital supplies.
Yes.
So, there are efforts really across the piece, and the vast majority of them are actually being delivered through the kindness of volunteers.
Yeah. And how are you helping people protect their own mental health at the minute? Because I'd imagine that it's quite a tough time for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the main things around protecting one's own mental health, we look at issues around resilience, but also getting a perspective, because these difficult days aren't going to last forever.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think that the idea of hope and that, change will come, things will get better. Sometimes hope, companionship, actually reaching out to friendships and checking on people can really help maintain good mental health.
Yeah, great.
Maintaining regular routines for the day, waking up, going to sleep at regular times, not having too much news input with doom and gloom all the time, a good diet, exercise, doing things that are fun, learning new things, learning new activities and exercising different parts of your brain, singing, dancing. I should imagine you do quite a lot of that in your spare time. You're very happy. But generally all of those things around maintaining good mental health that we would do ordinarily when days are good.
Yeah, well,
they're the same things that apply.
Yeah,
good diet, nutrition, exercise, fresh air, companionship, new learning, excitement, interest, sleeping patterns.
Yes.
So, all of those things combined can really make for a more hopeful and optimistic outlook. Yeah. And that can be one of the strongest sort of panaceas to maintaining good mental health.
Yeah, 100%. I clearly, singing and dancing we do, which is great for our own mental health, not so good for the neighbours, if I'm honest. We had the karaoke machine out last night. Nothing better than a
Dame's karaoke night.
Yeah, we do love a bit of karaoke. What was you singing last night?
Punk rocker, fast car. Ironic.
Is it ironic that it's good for our mental health but not good for our neighbours? I don't know. So you've come on to tell us about the amazing work. I know you do amazing work in the local community, but you've also got a project that you've run for a number of years now. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, we work a project up in the high Himalayas. It's called Dal Bani, which essentially means lentils, rice and water. We're we're a direct action volunteering initiative. So none of us are paid, we're all volunteers, and all the resources we raise go straight to the ground in supporting vulnerable elderly people, often with complex needs and disabilities, people who don't have children or other means of support, because in the Himalaya there is no such thing as welfare. We also support around resources, medication, medical testing, but also we support single moms bringing up children on their own. They might have lost their partners to the mountain or to disease. And as you might know, Nepal has had its more than its share of disaster and natural disaster over the last few decades. It's been affected by a number of very difficult times around earthquakes, various epidemics, political unrest. It's one of the poorest countries in the world, and we find that the work that we do there, where it's supported by local people in the communities in the High Himalaya, the Sherpa community, we actually find that with their support and with the support of our volunteers here, we're able to actually make this project work very well together. Every cog in this wheel works together. The project couldn't work without our volunteers on the ground in Nepal, without our volunteers here, and without fundraising efforts, because nobody is remunerated, nobody gets paid.
Yeah. And what was how did your connection with the High Himalayas and Nepal start?
It started about 20 years ago. I like to say that those are the days when I was young and stupid and felt that I would live forever. I used to mountaineer.
Okay.
So I was on a climbing expedition in the Himalaya in 1997. And that's when I met the community up there, the porters, the Sherpas, and the friendships grew and they continued, and I carried on visiting, and with every trip different things would present, different issues would present, and I'd be asking questions about, what people were eating and how they managed to get food to those altitudes, and what happened when you became ill, what were the rights of women, how did children go to school and get an education, or what happened to older people or people with disabilities, what happened to people with mental health issues. So lots of questions I had as I was visiting and revisiting, and every time there were questions, there appeared to be certain needs identified that we could actually do something about.
Yeah.
We'd never be able to address all of it, but I found that together we could find ways of chipping away at a solution that could make a difference to the lives of people. So the project evolved organically, really, based on the needs on the ground and responsive in a really collective way. So yes, every year the project looks a little bit different.
Yeah, and continues to evolve over time, right? I mean, what's happening in that part of the world in the current situation? Have you heard from anybody over there while you've been in lockdown?
Absolutely. I hear on a regular basis, about 5 times a week. So I get a series of videos, I have conversations on Viber, I get photos sent through. Essentially, the country is in lockdown. The banks are open only a few hours a day. Contact has been limited in Kathmandu quite severely, but up in the mountains, all tourism has stopped. So there is no income for porters, Sherpas, families. There's no income whatsoever. And where there's no income, there's no money to buy food.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's also happened, compounding the lockdown in the Himalaya, is that they've had some really strange unseasonal weather. So we've had a series of snowstorms at a time when it should be spring. It should be the time for planting potatoes, so that we've got a harvest for later in the summer, for eating through the winter. But unfortunately, what with the snowstorms, the ground's still solid. So the potato planting and the pak choy and the onions, all of that planting has been delayed because the ground's still solid.
Yeah.
Which is going to compound issues further, I think, in terms of food going forward and just access to basic staple nutrition.
So the work that you do over the next few months and years is going to be increasingly important, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we have been very, very fortunate. The situation is dire. The circumstances are incredibly affecting and disturbing. But I mean, our view generally is that the outcomes don't need to be. Yeah. And the people that we have based in the Himalaya have been mobilised, as have the community here. And we've actually rolled out the project within COVID. So even though the circumstances of lockdown have presented, our project continues to deliver.
In what way? So
and it has delivered, I think, magnificently over the last 4 weeks. So much so that it's actually reached over 100 people, supported over 100 people. It's distributed resources, food, money, blankets, and it's done all of that through snowstorms and lockdown, which is formidable. I'm amazed at the efforts that people have made to make this happen.
You can't stop like sort of human will sometimes, can you? Like especially super resilient people trying to get stuff done. It's quite a powerful force.
Absolutely. I think where there's a will, the human condition will find a way. As a species, we're very, very resilient, and if we put our mind to something and a collective people, a group of people come together, there's not a lot that isn't possible.
Look, you're certainly a testament to that, so thank you for the work you do. Tell me a story which best reflects the work you do. What story are you most proud of?
I think it's the connectedness. The story, I think, of the Buddhist monks, I think, comes to mind, because the Buddhist monks, we work with about 16 villages across 6 localities, and some of these communities are very dispersed in very harsh mountainous terrain. And we have people who are very, very vulnerable and often have mobility issues. And there are no roads where we are. So we have this informal infrastructure that works beautifully. We have these monks from about 6 different monasteries who, on their travels, will identify people and let us know where the most vulnerable people are. Because oftentimes, the ones who are the quietest are the ones most in need, and you don't see them. So they actually become our couriers almost. So I think combined with prayer, hope, faith, we have these couriers that relay messages and money and resources and recruit to the program. And in the main, most of our monks are actually hereditary monks or generational monks. So they live very quiet lives in solitude. But for this project, over the years, we've managed to win over the priests, the monks and the nuns, actually, to work on this project. So the stories they tell us individually when we sit together are very heartwarming. And some of them are actually very, very funny.
What's the funniest story you've heard from a monk? That wasn't a question I was expecting to ask today, but I feel the need to ask it.
The funniest story, I think the funniest story is the jig that we got recently. I received a video only this morning. And I'm sorry I couldn't send it to you. It was very short notice. But we actually had one of our older recipients come into a guest house to receive her blanket and her resources for food. And she actually came into the room dancing a jig.
Amazing.
And singing. Amazing. So her legs and her arms were akimbo. There was this singing happening. It was hilarious to watch it. It was something out of a comic sketch. It was wonderful. But I think the joy, the only way she could describe how joyful she was feeling was to dance this sketch.
Yeah.
It had everyone in the room laughing. And it was a joy to watch on the video this morning.
Funny enough, that reminded me of Charlotte yesterday when she was in the karaoke.
Not denying it.
Have you got a question?
So how do you raise money for these efforts?
We raise money through various very, very committed volunteers. So we, at Citywire, when you came for lunch, Chris, we actually organise lunches where we feed the staffing cohort, and with the funds they provide for their lunches, we put those directly 100% towards feeding others in the Himalaya. We have young people making Christmas cards, which we sell. We have donations coming in from communities who put aside their hairdressing tips or their pocket money. So, our resources can come from young people as little as 5 and 6, raising funds, baking cakes and selling them, or come from people as old as being in their 90s.
Yeah.
We also are supported through the Seneca Trust and the Citywire organisation in Vauxhall, and they've supported us in recent years to actually be able to upscale some of our efforts. So this year we were actually able to helicopter in 100 blankets from Kathmandu into the mountains and distribute them. Work that we would not have been able to do had it not been for the additional resource. So I'm grateful to all of our volunteers and our funders, large and small, for everything they do, because without them we couldn't move on this project at all.
It goes back to the point you raise about that collective action, doesn't it? Like when we get together and set a mind to it, you can achieve quite a lot.
Oh, absolutely. And also a little bit of work and a little bit of resource can be made to impact in a very meaningful and long-term way. I've come to find that we've been able to use money in a way that can make a huge amount of sustainable difference on the ground, where the elderly, the economics, the income, as well as the health, the mental health improve, and also access to education and learning for young people, the issues around inclusion, and actually having a community move forward together. In terms of well-being. I find that if you can think through the intervention in a holistic way and join up those areas, a small amount of money can be meaningful and impacting across the piece.
Yeah, because I remember speaking to you before when we interviewed you for the audio-only version of the Kindness Project, and one of the important things we talked about was the fact that part of what you do is including making sure you include people on the ground to deliver what you deliver.
Absolutely. We've always done that. We've never worked in isolation. We've never called ourselves an NGO. We don't parachute in a solution. It doesn't work. I don't have a huge deal of regard for that approach. I think that if local people are involved in identifying needs, involved in working through how best to implement potential solutions, and then involved in delivering and rolling out the actions that affect that change, that sense of ownership in the local community is heightened. We all own the project. The issues affect all of us. We're all a part of that solution. And I think that ownership actually buys in so much more goodwill. And it also builds into the project a strength that says it can carry on from one year to the next. There is no politicising in anything that we do. We don't work with ministers. We don't work with these policies. The closest thing we have a policy to the work that we do is a safeguarding policy, and one that actually involves moving through the mountains safely, having regard and respect for the local community and the local culture.
Amazing. Now, you've sent us some videos. Now, just a word of warning. We've tested this. The videos work, Charlotte, don't they?
They work.
They work. And we're going to show your videos now. So whilst we do that, I want you to just tell us a little bit about what's going on in these videos while I move my head out the way, because I think it goes over the video. So I'm just going to move over this way.
Yeah.
Well, I can't see the video, Chris, so I'm relying on your description of what you're seeing.
The videos are some packages. So this is like a little game, isn't it? Some packages and people wrapping up blankets by the looks of it. So tell us what's going on.
Basically, that video, we actually got a cargo helicopter to deliver between snowstorms 100 heavy-duty blankets that were purchased in Kathmandu. They landed in a place called Senboche, and they were carried on people's backs to the guest house in Kyangchuma. And there the blankets were sorted and individually wrapped because they were going to be carried on people's backs to each of the locations that we support. Yeah. So they were then going to be carried en masse on people's backs because there are no roads. Yeah. To Tame, Tamo, Kiaro, to places like Podse, Kumjung, Kunde, and Upper and Lower Pangboche. So all of those areas in the Khumbu Valley and in the valleys across from the Khumbu, these blankets would have been carried on people's backs to physically deliver them to the different locations, up and down mountains, to altitudes of between 12 and 14,000.
And we also saw a video of some people out in the in the mountains in the snow. Is that the weather now? Is that the weather currently?
That's the weather currently. The temperature in Namche Bazaar last night was minus 11. They had a flurry of snow yesterday and the day before. So absolutely, it is current. They've had snow on and off for months now. And like I say, it's very unseasonal. We put it down to global warming because right now it should be spring and it should be planting potato time.
Amazing.
They're all working in the snow, blizzard conditions, and temperatures sometimes of up to minus 17 at night time.
There are some huge smiles on the faces of the people who are working as well. So it's, looking at what we're going through at the minute with all our creature comforts, if you can stay positive in that sort of environment, then surely we can too, right? And potentially support the amazing work you're doing.
I think the value of let's bring home the value of a blanket. The value of a blanket at high altitude in those temperatures is the difference between life and death. And it's not just the value of the purchase of the blanket, because the blanket has to be purchased in Kathmandu and somehow it has to be transported with additional cost. And then it has to be transported on foot to each locality. So you could have a blanket that actually has a monetary value of £5. By the time you've added transport with helicopter and porterage, it could be worth £25.
Yeah. But as you say, how can you put a price on somebody's life?
Absolutely. And the blankets that we've sourced this year are actually excellent. They are superb heavy-duty blankets. And all of our porters were also given a blanket this year as well, for the simple reason that they were doing all the porterage in those temperatures with snow on the ground, with heavy weights on their backs. And knowing that the economy is slowing, what with tourism down, we wanted to ensure that the porters were remunerated this year fairly, with as many days as we could offer by way of work, and also given a blanket to take back to their homes at the end of their shifts with this particular piece of work. So we're trying to spread the love as far as we can in practical and meaningful ways.
Okay, so where can people find more out about you and your organisation?
My email address, I think you already have, Chris, and my telephone number. So, if anybody has any interest in finding out more about the work that we do, I would like to share the story and forward on various reports or to give more detail about how people might be able to support us either through funds or with voluntary effort, or with any ideas in terms of fundraising that we could do in the future to be able to work forward. We're always on the lookout for skills.
Okay, amazing. I've got somebody that I'm going to introduce you to, so expect an email from me directly as soon as we're done, because I think this particular lady shares certain values and certain hopes. So I'll make that introduction for you, and we'll put details on the show notes of your organisation, Vaz, so other people can help.
That's lovely, Chris. Thank you very much.
No worries. And can I just say, we've got in our, you've probably been doing the same. I've been doing loads and loads of Zoom meetings and video meetings, and like our background's a picture of you and Sophie, isn't it? A photo of you and Sophie. I've seen so many bookshelves over the past couple of weeks because people have got bookshelves in their background. I've never seen. Excuse me, I don't know what happened there. I've never seen a bush. So thank you for including is that a bush or is that a tree?
Looks like a bunch of trees.
Is it a bunch of trees?
It's a bunch of trees, Chris. And if you look carefully, you might be able to see the Tibetan prayer flags there as well.
Oh, amazing. We like it.
Cheer myself up.
Yeah, that's really good. So what I'm going to do is share some of the answers we've had for, I think it was a bush, I don't know. Well, some of the answers we've had for question of the podcast, which was, what's your favourite memory of your grandparents? Daniel, and I love these. I just absolutely love these. Daniel Sewell said, when I was little, I used to have sleepovers all over my nan and granddad's all over the place, all the time. Every morning, my nan would wake me up asking if I wanted tea in bed. Nan and granddad would return about 10 minutes later, and granddad would always sneak tea biscuits upstairs in his dressing gown pocket. We'd all get back into bed together to drink our morning tea, and literally every time Nan and granddad would have a jokey argument about the tea, biscuits, and the fact that it wasn't a suitable breakfast. I love that, absolutely love that. A bit cheesy, but that's what parents and grandparents do. And I know, just one thing I want to raise. On a previous version of the Kindness Project, somebody compared me, because I am this cheesy, to Ali G, right? You don't know who Ali G is. I'm more David Brent, thank you, commenter. Tamsin Kane, my grandparents, you need to Google Ali G. Tamsin Kane said, my parents lived in a tiny village in South Wales when I was a child. I always used to go with my grandpa to walk the dog, and my grandma would tell us not to pick the blackberries because they'd stain my grandpa's coat. Would return with bulging pockets full. I like that. A bit of rebellion. We like that. Alan Kaz has kept it simple. What he remembers about his grandparents is sherbet lemons. And producer of the show, Russell Dames, has commented with my dad's nan, and I'm sure we're not alone on this, had a larder, right? They had a cupboard, and basically it was full of wagon wheels. So every time we used to go round there, we used to knock on the door, and it was the door was open. It was like, come with me. We're going into the cupboard. And we used to have like a Twix and a wagon wheel and stuff like that. And my other nan used to do a mean omelette, which is where I get my love of omelettes from, I think. Alice Joy said, my grandma let me make mixtures in the kitchen, concoctions of flour and porridge, etc. It must have been a bloody nightmare to clean up after, but I had such fun and she never complained. Tracy Dame said, I remember going to my nan and granddad's house, sitting by the coal fire, and my nan would tell me beautiful stories about two little girls who lived in the garden, but it was a beautiful place. She never read it from a book, and she always made it up from her own imagination. Heidi Ball said, Mum's mum was babysitting one night. I had a cabin bed. She came to check on me and was in a blind panic because she couldn't find me because I was hiding. Steve Dan said, playing cards with my granddad for pennies. He would always let me win. And if he was ever ill, he always used to drink a tot of Scott's Mac, his cure for everything. Trev Robinson said, going on holiday in the Isle of Wight for many years, such special times. And Roberta White said, my dad's mum and her Sunday dinners were heaven. My mum's dad coming home with a great string of fish that had been caught that day at sea. And then on Twitter, we've got a few of these. Rich Ellis said, my granddad used to have a shed with a collection of old children's bikes that had been thrown away. When we used to go around there, we used to ride the bikes. Charlie said, my grandfather offering me a penny for every width of the pool I did to get me swimming. And to his horror, me spending several hours going back and forth. That's an amazing story. I mean, like, just the motivation of that penny a width kept him going. And my grandmother flashing Prince Charles in protest of him divorcing Diana. The time my grandmother told me I would never get married because I'm fat. And guess what? I got married fat. Okay, well, thank you for that one. And the other one, at no non-person, said, Gran fed me Cornish pasties, which he got hot from the bakers and kept warm till dinner on the hearth. I swear they tasted of coal, but they were marvellous.
Love a good Cornish pasty.
I love a good Cornish pasty. Before we go, Vaz, right, I just want to, because we've tasted your food and it's amazing. What is the best curry you've ever had?
Oh gosh, now that's a tough question. What is the best curry I've ever had? Okay, South India in Kerala.
Yeah.
And it's a curry. It's a type of a thoran, which means it's a type of dry curry, and it's dry and it's almost stir fried, but it's made out of baby jackfruit.
Okay.
And it takes about a day to prepare, and it is divine.
Amazing. We'll look that up. Do you remember what it was called?
It's called chakatoran.
I'm not going to pronounce that because I'm known to butcher.
But it is beautiful. I think South Indian cuisine is gorgeous.
Yeah, well,
I think it's all that coconut milk and
Yeah, Sri Lanka. I mean,
wonderfully.
I've never been to South India, but we went to Sri Lanka a few years ago, and that was an amazing place. So I 100% agree. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you coming on and spending the time. And for everybody who's watching or listening again, have a lovely day today. If you're watching live, have a lovely VE day, and we'll see you next time on the Kindness
Are we forgetting
Project.
something?
Thank you very much.
Hold on, Vaz. We've got to finish, as we are now apparently a comedy podcast. We now need to finish on Charlotte's joke of the day. Prepare to be surprised.
Lovely.
But not pleased surprised, because it's not like a joke.
Go for it.
Some people have trouble sleeping. I can do it with my eyes closed.
Vaz, I did hear a slight laugh there. Please don't do that. It encourages
You've got
us.
a shaking of the head. It's one of those knock-knocks, you know.
And on that note, they are getting worse. Have a lovely day, and we'll see you next time on the Kindness Project.
Bye.
Bye.